All right, we are live. Thank you. I'm glad we're able to present today's webinar, Photoshop training for DTG printers. This is our first of 2 sessions. So don't forget, kids, we have Dane Clement, the world-renowned icon, the OG of Photoshop and all things decorated apparel. What, Dane? How are you?
What? Hey, all right.
Look at that. Look, I love that backdrop, man. I love that that energy of that art room. You've got the whole, you got easels up. You've got pens.
This is my home studio. This is where I have my most fun right here.
What a cool studio indeed. We're lucky to have you. Thank you so much for taking some time with us. We're grateful that you were able to share this message with some of your clients and some of our clients. We've got a great mix. We've also got Jeff Morgenthaler, who's one of our lead sales reps and trainers from Equipment Zone, joining us. And most importantly, we have the next 20 to 30, maybe 35 minutes with you to share Photoshop tips, tricks, do this, don't do that. You're going to kind of put it into the perspective of what we should know as decorated apparel and DTG printers. So thrilled again. So a little bit before we turn it over to Dane and let him go crazy with his screen, I'll turn mine off. Most of you, if it's okay with you, we prefer to monitor the chat. It's easier for Jeff and I to do that. You can use the Q&A. We still keep our eye on that. But if you have a specific question to exactly what Dane is talking about in the moment, and you feel like maybe a little clarity would be helpful, please hit us up in the chat. We'll do our best to answer a few of those questions at the end. This is a popular topic, and there's a lot of you, so we may not get to every question. In fact, I'll just let you down right now. We will not be able to get to every one of your questions. However, Dane is such an amazing teacher and instructor that he has agreed that if you would like to ask him personally any of the questions as a result of this webinar, that he would answer those via email. So I'll let Dane tell you more about that a little bit later. So if there aren't any more questions and there aren't any more introductions, Jeff, you're here. We can see you and hear you. You had a great hair day.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome. And then Dane, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Okay.
And you should have controls. If it looks like you don't, let me know.
It looks like I have.
This is the fun part of the webinar.
Yeah, this is. There we go.
There you go. This worked. Technology.
Hey, jeez.
Fired up. Fired up. All right, I'll be quiet. Let's let Dane take it.
All right. So thanks for you guys for hanging out with us here for a little bit today. What I'm going to do first, this is like a 2-parter. It's a short, webinars, but they're going to be done in 2 parts, right? So the first one is the beginning stages of how to set up stuff, because I think a lot of people overlook it. What they do is they just jump right in, take a file from a customer, who knows what it is, 1 inch by 1 inch, and crappy 72 DPI JPEG thing, and expect to blow it up on a shirt and make it work, and it looks beautiful, and it doesn't, right? So that's key. A lot of people will automatically just start using vector artwork, and I'm not going to show vector artwork in this webinar here. This is Photoshop only. It is pixel-based raster images. That, to me, is what makes a DTG machine shine. You have to compare yourself to screen printers out there, right? So we're trying to get some business either from a screen printer, or as a screen printer, we're going to add this to our offerings, that sort of thing. And this machine is built for full color. That's what it's made for. So you might as well take advantage of it from the get-go, right? So, so if you can see my screen, this is my Photoshop splash screen here. I got to try to move these faces, my 2 buddies. I got to get them out my way. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File menu, and I'm going to come down to New, and we'll get this dialog box. Hopefully everybody can see it.
Looks good.
And this is where all the magic is, right? This right-hand panel right here, as long as you plug in the proper information in this piece of this window, you will have enough resolution to print beautiful prints. So I'll show you. Let's walk through them, right? So when we create the artwork, stock designs that we create for Great Dane Graphics, we do everything at 14 inches by 14 inches, right? Our resolution is 300 pixels per inch. That is a high-res file. That means if I create with those parameters at that resolution, I can print anything I want. especially on a garment machine. But we have customers that wrap vehicles. We have guys printing them on gym floors and whatnot. So when you start off with enough resolution, you can interpolate up pretty good. Large format sign guys can do it as well. So just to know that this is key information. Now the color mode is, I always create my artwork in RGB mode, not CMYK. I know you might be thinking, my printer is a CMYK printer. Why wouldn't I create my artwork in CMYK? Because when you create your artwork, the computer screen is the best that artwork will ever look, right? This is RGB light going straight into your eyes. And a printed shirt is reflective light. So you print the shirt, you look at it, the light bounces off into your eyes. So this is the best it will ever look. So if you create it that way, you can use it for anything. You can use it for your social media. You can use it for any ads or whatever you might want as well. So it's just always a good idea to use RGB color. Another thing that some people don't consider as important, yet it's extremely important, is your background contents. If you were to start this thing up, and I think Photoshop defaults, if I remember right, to white, right? If I open up a white design, start painting on it, I can add new layers and paint on layers, don't get me wrong. But if I happen to do what I do quite a bit, when I have multiple layers, I end up painting on the wrong one accidentally. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I got to figure out how to fix it, right? So it happens. But if you do it on a transparent background, you're ready to go. That helps, right? Because it means it's nothing, there's no flat color until you start adding layers underneath it or on top of it. So super key. The next thing is the color profile. And if you happen to be looking at your Photoshop and it just looks like this, just twirl this little advanced options down, right? And you'll see this sRGB is probably the standard where it's going to be as a default option to you. So if you own a printer and you're printing and your colors, you're wondering why your colors aren't really that saturated, why your blacks aren't really black. They're more charcoal grayish-ish, you know? This one change alone can make a huge difference. So just give it a shot. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Adobe Rgb 1998. This is where I create all of the artwork that we do. Everything I create, I use this color profile. I happen to personally think it's got more color than any other one. It's super rich. My blacks are black when I print them. My colors are vibrant. It just comes together and works really, really nicely. All right, so I'm gonna choose that and I hit create, and there's my file. Anytime you see these little gray and white checkers, that is a universal representation of transparent pixels. That means that right now there is nothing there. I can start creating artwork on one layer and making another one and flip flop and move them around. There's no solid background yet. So what I want to do is like a 2-minute quick walkthrough of Photoshop's interface. I don't spend a lot of time on that because I don't use a whole lot of the tools in Photoshop. Photoshop can do 3D, it can do video editing, all this crazy stuff. I don't use it for that. I use it to print t-shirts and stuff. So over here on the left-hand side, there's my toolbar, right? So the top, my little arrows tool, that's the move tool. If I click on that, if you see this little white triangle at the bottom right corner, there's just other tools nested underneath that tool. That's all that means, right? So you can find a like tool by whatever tool you happen to be using. So when I select a tool, let's go ahead and get my brush tool, and I leave these annoying things on for my webinars and I turn them off as soon as I'm done. But this is a pretty cool little thing. If you just mouse over it, it tells you kind of what that tool, how the tool operates and what it does, right? So this is on by default. You can turn it off in the preferences. But when I choose a tool, what I want you to look at is this menu bar across the top here, right? So as I choose a tool, you can see here it changes. And that lets us control the tool that we're working with. So every tool, it shows a different settings, different options that we can adjust, that sort of thing in this upper bar. So it's pretty cool. Now, one other place I'm going to show you that I spend a lot of time on is this image menu, right? So I've come down to image adjustments. In this menu, is probably, in my opinion, one of the most powerful ones that Photoshop has. And I spend a lot of time in it. I like to call this Photoshop's Corvette engine, right? We just open up the hood and we're looking at some major horsepower in that one little menu alone. So you'll get it. You'll find that you use it a lot. We probably won't use it a whole lot in this short webinar, but throughout my books, my training books and things like that, I go in here all the time. So knowing that, that's my quick tour, right? I don't want to spend a whole lot of time. If you can see over here, my layers panel. Let me do that. There we go. So here's my panels, right? I can make them smaller. You can drag them up and drag them out. I'm just going to use these panels here for now. And what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and open up a file and I'll show you a quick little trick of how to change a color in an image. Because conducting seminars for 25 years, I think it's been, and working at trade shows and speaking to people and showing our art workbooks and our training products in our booths, one of the questions I get an awful lot is like, well, if this isn't a vector, you can't do anything with it, right? I can't change a color. I can't change its size, that sort of thing. And you definitely can. You just need to know how. It's super easy, as a matter of fact. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close out my character palette, which closed them all out. So I'm gonna go to my window menu. If you have no panels like I do, I have no panels. I'm looking for my layers panel. So I'm gonna go to my window menu at the top. All the panels that Photoshop gives us is inside this one window here. So if I'm gonna come to layers, and it pulls it right back up, right? Because that's what I'm looking for here. I have my color wheel. You can change that in preferences. You might have the single row of hues. I like the color wheel. I think it's pretty cool. All right, so what I wanna do though is we have this little Volkswagen Beetle dealy, right? And it's blue and it looks cute. And let's say somebody says, well, that's cute, but I can't use it because it's the wrong color. If you go to the image menu and come down to adjustments and you go to hue saturation. And if you notice here on the right-hand side, that's a command symbol with a U. So if I hit Command U or Control U on your PC, it's going to bring that menu up automatically. So anytime you see these things over here on the right-hand side of the menus, and most menus have them, you can see here, you will learn that they will speed your artwork process up. So I can go to image menu, come down to adjustments, go over to hue saturation to pull this panel up, or just hit Command U or Control U on your keyboard and it comes right up. You'll be amazed. The more of those that you learn, the faster everything gets. I mean, you'll shave off a half an hour just of work in a day just by doing that, not having to navigate all the way through to those panels, right? So looking at this, what do we have here? We got a hue, a saturation, and a lightness slider, right? So this little guy is blue, and maybe your customer says, well, I don't have a blue bug, I have a purple one. I don't know, whatever, right? So what you want to do is just go to the hue slider, right? This little triangle right here, and start moving it, and look what happens. Since this image is monochromatic, pretty much, right? It was just blues and blacks and whites. I can pick a color, and if I wanted it more saturated, I can saturate that color up, right? So I can make it really rich. And I just customize it for my customer that fast, right? So what I will tell you, this is a little trick that sometimes works, but you gotta be very careful. So for instance, if this purple is, I think looks pretty good, but if you want it a little bit darker, if you come over here to grab this lightness slider, you can push it back just a tinge and it kind of richens it up a little bit. But when I say you got to be careful is because when you do this lightness slider, watch this, everything gets darker, right? So your highlights get darker, your shadows get darker, all the colors, you know, everything just slides down that scale. Or I can slide it all the way up and lighten it if you wanted to, right? So I don't use this a lot, but sometimes it actually becomes helpful. And I just thought you might want to take a look at that. So something like this looks pretty cool. We went about 7 clicks, 7% down, made it a little bit richer, a little darker. And maybe that's what the customer's looking for, right?
Hey, Dane, can I ask you a quick question? Did that file originate? Was it a PNG file? Does it matter if it was a JPEG or
yes.
what?
So yeah, I'm gonna hit okay to this, right? So if you look at the tab right here, It is a
Gotcha.
PNG file, right? It's an RGB file. Everything RGB. Try to drill that into your head. Always, always, always. And there's guys out there that say, no, use CMYK because you can't print an RGB color value, right? Which is true. So there are ranges of color that are outside the printability of a CMYK machine. That's okay. So I look at it this way. If I want a print or an image to look great, on my screen is the best it's going to look. That means it's RGB, lights going straight into my eyes, right? So it looks as good as it can look here, and I can take that RGB file, that PNG file, and when I send it to that Epson, that garment creator is going to take it and say, oh, I have an RGB PNG. So it's going to do the math, and it's going to print the shirt, and it's going to print it beautifully. It might not hit the super hot colors like the neons and those kinds of things.
Right. Gotcha.
But it's going to go all the way as much as it can, and it's going to be the best print it can be. So to me,
Gotcha.
I'd rather have it look as good as possible all the way around.
100% with you. One more clarifying question. Could I use the hue and saturation?
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Jay. Just real quick on that. So it's a PNG format, so we have the transparent background. If you're using a TIFF, GIF, or JPEG, then you're going to have a white bounding box around that, correct?
Yes, you will. So what you'll have, if I do this, and that's the problem, right? So if I come over here, let's just go to my layers and flatten it, right? So that's what your JPEG would look like, right? Because JPEGs don't have transparency. That's why all of our artwork is a PNG file for two reasons. One, we just have all the art on one layer, right? Just one artwork layer on a transparent background. And that allows me to change colors underneath, add other elements or whatever, do anything I want. But a PNG file it's a high res capability and a low or a smaller file size, the actual document size, right? So right now we're working, let me go ahead and Command Z that. I'm gonna go back to my thing here and I'm just gonna let's just save this guy for a second. I'm gonna name it, purple
bug.
Yeah, VW, whatever, right? I'm gonna put it on my desktop and I'm gonna hit save. So right now when we're working on this file, we look in here at the bottom of my screen as it's saving the file here. Let's take a look. Ooh, should not be taking this long to save a PNG. 40 megabytes, because I'm 14 inches by 14 inches, right? Let's go ahead and hide this guy for a second. And here he is. If I click on him and check out my file size, it's only a 10 megabyte file. So a PNG is a low file size, right? It's not a real fat file, but it's got all the high res you want. It is not a JPEG though, because if I save this as a JPEG, I can probably save space and it will be smaller than at 10 megabytes. But the problem is on a JPEG, when you close that file, it throws away pixels. So you lose information in that file, right? It throws away detail, and that becomes a problem when you get down and start printing things and you open it up and close it a few times. So
that's a problem when you're Great Dane. You don't want to be throwing away any pixels. You need every pixel.
That's right.
All that magic. Dane,
Absolutely.
one more last question before I turn you loose. If I started with a JPEG file, that's what my customer sent me, could I use the hue and saturation and change the color, or does it have to be
No, you can definitely change colors with it.
Okay.
With a JPEG. Yeah, it doesn't matter what file type, JPEG, TIFF, Photoshop document. The only thing is if there's a color in the background, it's going to change that color as well. If it is a transparent something, then it won't, right? So.
Well, and then I'd like to bring up something else. So if you bring in any file format other than a PNG into your printing software, like Garment Creator for the Epson Direct-to-Garment printer, it will show you that white box around it. So there are features for knocking that out, but if you want to prep it all in Photoshop so you get the best quality.
Man, look, I'm gonna tell you what, do it in Photoshop. You will have way better success. Your backgrounds will be much cleaner. You can control pixel for pixel in Photoshop like a dream. Those garment creators are awesome. All the RIP software, all those kind of things are fantastic, but they're not perfect on everything, right? So, but if you're going to create your file, just create it on a transparent background in the first place and you're good to go.
Perfect.
All right. So I'm going to show another little image here. I'm going to open this guy. Let's see. All right, so this is a Sacred Heart image. It's kind of fun, kind of cool. If you look at my layers, you see the transparency because you can see these gray and white square pixels, right? It's all viewing as a transparent background. Now, if I go ahead and put a new layer, I'm just going to go to the bottom of my layers panel and I'm going to click on the new layer icon. I'm going to move it underneath, right? And let's go ahead and pick a like a, I don't know, like a steel blue color, something like that, right? So if I'm going to print a steel blue, gray shirt, whatever it might be, that's going to be my image that we can work with. Or you can customize this thing. And this is, I've been showing it a little bit lately because it seems to be kind of popular. And it's like an old school technique, but it's still pretty neat. So I'm going to select my artwork layer here and I'm going to drag it to my new layer icon, right? And it's going to duplicate it. So you got two here. Now I'm just going to grab one of them and put it underneath my background and I'll just turn that eyeball off. Now, this is the old school part. All I did was copied my layer so I can always go back and revert to the very beginning if I wanted to. Because what I'm going to do is we're going to make this guy a grayscale image and we're only going to have color in the heart and the flames. And we're going to get rid of all that other crazy color that seems to be fighting with the image and see what it might look like, right? So the way I do that is go ahead and select my layer of the artwork and I'm going to come down to the bottom of my layers panel and you see this little half circle, half white circle, half black circle. That's an adjustment layer. So if I click on that, I'm kind of get I'm just going to get this whole list out. I can use or make and create adjustment layers for all the stuff that you see here, right? Brightness and contrast, levels, curves, all this sort of thing. I'm going to go to hue saturation though, because that's what I want to try to do here. And I'm going to drag this guy over here to get him out of our way so we can see the image. Now, if you notice on my layers, that when I created that hue saturation layer, it put a new layer above my artwork, right? And if you see here, you can tell that this is an adjustment layer because it's got this little gray icons or whatever. And you can see this box has white outlines on the corners here. So that means like right now, if I wanted to paint something inside there, that's where I would do it pretty much, right? So I'm going to come back to this adjustments layer for a second and I got to make an adjustment to it. So what I want to do is I want to take all the color out. I'm going to make a grayscale image. I'm going to go to my saturation slider and I'm going to pull it all the way out. Now, everything from that adjustment layer down is grayed out, okay? Even my color background. So if you notice my layer, remember we put a steel blue or a blue gray in there. If I turn my eyeball off, it goes back to transparent pixels, which is, it's not a big deal because I'm gonna show you how I would handle it, what we're gonna do when we're ready to print this guy, right? So what I wanna do though is I wanna go ahead and make just the heart and the flames of the Sacred Heart in color. The rest, leave it grayscale.
You
so
can do that, Dane?
I am magic, man. Of course I can do that.
Dude.
All right. So what I'm going to do. Now
you got my attention. Now I'm really listening.
So I happen to be using a Cintiq. That's what I'm about to paint on, which is a cordless pen. You can have a Wacom tablet. You can do it with this brick if that's all you got. But if you're an artist and want to try to do some killer artwork, at least get a bamboo, Wacom bamboo. It's like 80 bucks maybe. And it's a little tablet. It's a cordless tablet that you can draw and paint. It just makes it a whole lot easier to do nicer work. So I'm going to select the white mask part of my my adjustment layer, and I'm going to go to get my brush tool, right here, and I'm going to lean into I'm going to get in real close to my camera. No, I'm not. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right into my artwork, and it is a white background on my adjustment layer. You can see the little white square there. My foreground color is black, right? That's my Photoshop's default colors. And when I start painting over this image, look what happens. Right, so I'm bringing back.
I see what you're doing. You're bringing back the color layer. Bringing
the color back in where I want it. And I happen to have a soft edge brush here, so I'm just gonna roll with it. If I hit my left bracket key, it reduces my brush size. The right bracket key on my keyboard increases my brush size, right? So something like that. So I'm going to reduce it and just really quickly just kind of paint this stuff in here.
Dane, you're working on a Mac, right?
I'm on a Mac. Yeah, this works on PC though. Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had one of those Wacom tablets. They're really cool.
Yeah, I got a travel one that I take with me everywhere.
I don't know if you say Wacom or Wacom. I never get it right.
I used to call it Wacom, but it's Wacom. Whack-a-mole stuff or something.
Whack-a-mole? That's whack, bro.
You know, what can I say? All right. So you get the idea. I'm literally just focusing in on exactly where I want my color to pop and just pulling it right back out. So one more minute here and we'll be done with this. And then I'm going to show you, once you create an adjustment layer, you can't just take this file and start printing it. And I don't recommend taking the file and just save as PNG with the adjustment layers, because sometimes it will work fine and you have no issues. Aha. Sometimes being the key word.
Sometimes you have issues?
Even I have issues. Well, if I avoid.
We know that you have issues. That's a whole nother conversation, Dave.
You've been talking to my wife? What?
No, she stopped calling me a long time ago.
That's what I thought. All right. So an adjustment layer is cool, is really cool, but
I love that.
Problematic
look,
sometimes.
Awesome.
Right? So it makes it a little different, right? Now here's the deal. So if I were to save this as a PNG, it will probably work, probably being the key. So what I like to do is, this looks good to me. That's what I wanted. That's kind of what I had in my head. So what I'm going to do is just come to my layers panel, right? And I'm going to come here and click on that little icon list thing there, and I'm going to merge down. Or if you notice that shortcut again, that's Command E. So as long as you have the layer that you're on the top and you want to merge it with the layer right underneath it, which is what I want to do because that's my artwork layer, I can just hit that Command E, and then now the adjustment layer is gone, but everything else is in grayscale and just the color is there. So if I wanted to, though, remember, I can always go right back to my full color because I saved it as its own layer. So it's just the way you like to work. Now, this is kind of cool. I've been seeing this a lot. And if I go on my layer here, so if that's what I want, I'm good to go. But watch this. If I just pull it back to say 80% or so, I get more of that shirt color showing through in on everything. So it kind of gives it a more vintage look, I guess. If I wanted the rest of it to be even more so, then I would grab a lasso tool and select it and then reduce it back. But I think that looks pretty slick. So that's kind of,
That is a great tip, dude. I think that's a really cool, fresh look. Now, just let me ask you, Dane, if we have your stock design library, you've got tons of digital assets. I love your content. Jeff's going to talk a little bit about that later. This would be a great way to kind of repurpose that a little bit. So, 100%,
right? 100%. Okay. Because the both things, right? So the little Volkswagen Bug, right? It's one of ours. Right. It's blue, but people don't realize, they don't see this a lot, right? So they don't know that I can take something just because at one, what happens, they look through the book or look through the site and say, man, this is awesome. Just not exact, right? Maybe it's a football helmet is green. Well, you change it, but if the image grabs you, right, the image is going to grab your customer.
I know that. I'm so glad you brought that up, Dane, because a lot of people stumble over that. They've asked us at trade shows and they just don't. We've tried to explain it to them, but you showing it this way is perfect. Awesome. So
for instance, look at this. I'm going to put my background layer underneath the whole thing, right? So that's my original. I think that's cool. I also think the background fights too much if my idea was to focus in on the center. So if I put a word love in the middle or something like that, which, we could do if you want. We'll do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on. You're in control. You got the keys. You're driving.
So can you arc it? Can you put love in an arc, Dane?
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, this is how I would do it. Jeff, you're a genius. Oh, I'm sorry. Scratch that out of this recording, Jay.
Yeah, I can't edit that out. Come on now. And Harry's watching, so please.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a joke, Harry. Teasing, Jeff. All right, so look what I'm doing here. I just drew a path, right?
Yep.
With my path tool right here in my toolbar, right? My pen tool. Click on it. Look at the top here. I can do a path. I can do a shape. I'm drawing a path because I'm going to throw some type on it. So now I'm going to grab my T for the type tool. And if you look up in my screen, it's set to center. So I'll do that. I'll just see my cursor change
Yep.
It loses a box, right? And it turns into that little squiggly line, right? So if I click on that,
It's going to
and
follow that path.
we can do love, I can do mom, whatever. I don't know, that kind of thing. So with my V key or clicked, which I did, which I didn't show you, but I hit the V key, went to my move tool. So now I can just nudge it up with my arrow tools, right? Or keys rather. Now, if I don't want it this blue of my background, because I want it maybe a red. If I double click the T icon logo here, right? And then go to the top and click on my little box, my color wheel box there. Now I can say, hey, I could pick a color anywhere I want, or just come right into my image and pick one of the darker reds, let's say, that's in my image. Mm-hmm. So now it's color cohesiveness is all throughout. So there you go.
Awesome. That's great. Jeff, you are a genius.
He is, man. He is.
He's pretty good.
All right. So, that's it. So now what I would do if this is it, ready to go, I want to print the shirt, then I'm going to turn the eyeball off here, right? And I can leave it all in my layers just like you see. Or if I wanted this one, I'm going to put my love word on top of it. There's my 80% one. Remember when I turned my background on?
That's the one I like.
Yeah, me
there
too.
You
right?
go.
Got that vintage look or whatever. So if I turn the eyeballs off and just go to File and Save As, be real careful not to hit the save because it's right above it. Then you're going to kind of hose. You got to do it over maybe. And I'm just going to choose PNG and save it, right? And that PNG is the file I would send to the printer. And these layers here, I save and keep forever because I might want to come back and make that love mom.
Do a different version, different colorway, different text. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, completely.
It's almost like it almost comes a template, like it's a.
Yeah.
That's sweet, dude. I love that. Yeah. Jeff, what do you think?
Kind of slick.
Brilliant. I'm just impressed with how much Photoshop has to offer, and with what Dane has taught us. Even if it's just a small part of it, it helps us get over a little bit of that fear of there's so much here, I'll never figure it out. Well, This is enough to get somebody started and playing and practicing. And that's the biggest thing. Dive in with what Dane teaches you and then just start expanding by being creative and inventive and just try to come up with your own stuff. But yeah, that's amazing.
Look, when I do my seminars for newbies, that's the first thing I start with. I said, first off, if you're intimidated, because everybody is, if you're scared to death of Photoshop, oh my God, it's such a powerful program. It is. So Photoshop can fill the capabilities of my room right here that I'm in, right? That's 12-foot ceilings. This is a decent sized room. All I'm using is this much of it. See that?
Yep.
Little piece of what this software can do. And I use it all the time. So if there's less to learn. You don't have to learn the entire Photoshop. I don't use, 80% of it. You just don't need it. So just if you could break it down that way, I think it can calm people down a little bit and just say, you know what, they got this because you got this. Plus, with the art training that this guy does, it takes you through by the hand and walks you through the whole entire process. So.
Love it. So, I just want to brag about Dane for a second here because Dane, I've known you for a long time. We've actually worked together for a couple of years. I helped you sell your online product at greatdaygraphics.com, which is amazing. Everybody should go check it out because you can find a lot of all of your files there for download, and there's different subscriptions. You also sell all of your artwork in books. But on that website, it's more than just downloading artwork. You have more training for Photoshop. And I see that Rick asked a question about Coreldraw. This is a class on Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. But he does have training for Coreldraw also. So for you Coreldraw users, and we are also considering another webinar for Corel.
Right. So let me just touch on the Corel piece of it. Right. So when we started this particular class here, we talked about the fact that I wasn't going to do vector. I was focusing on Photoshop and pixels, and Coreldraw is a vector program. So is Adobe Illustrator, right? They do the same things. Photoshop is the image editor part for Adobe. If you own Coreldraw, you have an image editor. It's called Photo Paint. Problem is, it's not very powerful. So when I wrote my books, I had to pull lessons from the book because it doesn't do those, right? You can't do it. So what I would tell you to do, if you were to get Photoshop, just the one program from Adobe, I don't know, maybe it's $19 a month, and use it with Coreldraw in conjunction with them, it works perfect. And then you will have, if you're comfortable in Corel, you would have, and you own it, you would have your vector capabilities. And then anytime you want to import and use raster images, just bring them in that you've created in Photoshop, and you're going to have the best of both worlds. So they do work hand in hand, no problem. Just so you know that. A lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities in the tools. Like when you were creating a path and using the text tool to put text on that path is very similar to functions in Coreldraw. So once you're in a design program, you'll see a lot of similarities. You'll find that some of the tools are called different things. So you'll have to familiarize yourself with that. But that was a good question, Rick.
Hey, Dane, somebody asked about Photoshop Elements. You're using a full-blown version, and you have a...
Yeah, this is full-blown Photoshop, right? Elements is going to have, it's a scaled down version, and it's been years since I've been in it, but when I was in it, using it, it didn't have things for, at the time I was more a screen print guy, so didn't have alpha channels and whatnot. It's very limiting. So I'm gonna have to get back in it and check it out, but it doesn't have half of what we need for shirts.
Makes a lot of sense. Any more tips, any more training, anything else to highlight, Dane, before we give Jeff a few minutes to brag more about you?
No, I want to hit a brag and bring it on. I want to check this out.
Like I've already said, you know, we work together. I'm a huge fan of GreatDaneGraphics.com. I talk about you every time we've done our in-person trainings. I brought you up a lot in our online trainings and to my clients, because you prepare all of your artwork in formats for a lot of the different garment decoration, or whether it's laser engraving or large format print and cut. So even though you create your files in PNG, which are perfect for garment decorating, maybe our clients also do vehicle wraps, or they do vehicle decals, and your artwork is also prepped for that. But as far as it is concerned for garment decoration, it's absolutely perfect. Not only do you do it in a high resolution, but you actually do it to size, which is a really big deal. So a lot of clients, they're not artists. And you might not go into Photoshop and custom create your own artwork, but you're going to get files from somewhere else. And if that's what you're going to do, go to GreatDaneGraphics.com, because if you go to Google Images and try to download a file, even if it looks like it's a high resolution file, it might only be, you know, 1 inch by 1 inch square. And when you try to expand it, it's still going to look pixelated. So I printed out a couple of samples here of Dane's artwork, and hopefully you guys can see this good.
Yeah, we don't need to see you. We just like the welder. That's cool.
So I love that you create artwork. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I love that you create artwork, Dane, for everything from businesses, from trades, to the surf stuff that Jay likes. The school artwork, you probably recognize this. It's on a lot of your books. This is the
Spartan. It's on the cover of ours. Isn't it a Spartan, Dane?
Yeah.
Spartan. I love your military stuff. This file right here, last year at a trade show in North Carolina, I was printing this out, Dane, and I was absolutely overrun with requests for people to get this sample shirt. They absolutely love this. So I love that one. This one right here, I just love the color. And again, all of this stuff can be customized, right? And even on your website, you have a customization tool before you download it. This is one of my favorites.
That's awesome.
So I went to Hawaii with my family. We swam with the sharks, so I love this file. And school mascots, which is very popular with our clients. So I just love the textures. I don't know if this camera is doing it justice, but there's a lot of texture, a lot of detail, and fantastic colors. So GreatDaneGraphics.com. download graphics, you can customize graphics, you can get training, you can get different variations of the artwork for other production purposes.
Awesome. Yep.
You guys did a great job. I don't care what anyone says.
Don't we have a
Dane,
promo code or something, Jay?
yeah. So Jeff, first of all, I want to say thanks for showing those files. They were. I give them the artwork and the quality of the artwork an A+. I give our presentation a B+ because, you know, it's hard to get that, you said, the depth and the richness of the print through a webcam. But you know what? I'm glad you showed them because I really want our audiences to understand how effective they are for DTG printing. We love the samples, and Dane, your training today was perfect because it reminded me that you're not locked in to just the exact what you see on that page. That you can, like Jeff said, customize it, modify it, edit it. You can, you know, change the color, change the text values, and the hue saturation tool, and showing that was phenomenal. So thank you. And so what I really wanted to show was this, because this is the book that even our folks were fighting for. So that's when I knew it was a hit, Dane, was when I saw our techs like, wait, where's mine? Hey, don't take my book, bro. Because they were like, you know, 10 pages in, there were notes, you know, that they were taking and they were practicing. And so I really know that this was a hit. We're lucky to have it. We customized the cover so all of our clients can go to our website. We wanted to make sure that there was a 20% discount for those that tuned into this session and who watched the recorded session. This will be available for 1 week until we have our next session, Dane, on next Thursday. So the discount code is 20 off Dane Guide. Jeff and I have no responsibility for that code. It is what it is. But if you get stuck, you can call the office. You can call Jay. We'll be happy to help you. Make sure that you understand. And there you are with our great friend, Terry Combs, the OG. Anything to add, Jeff?
No, I mean, I think we've done a great start here and a great lead in for the next webinar next week. I won't be here, Dane. I'll actually be on vacation.
Whoa, what is that?
You get to go on vacation? Not
Yeah.
cool.
Hey, man.
I'm gonna erase Jeff's name from this now that I know he's going on vacation next week. This is the key contact information, obviously, but I want to add one more email to it. Dane, would you mind if you were so generous that if people have specific questions on what you showed and shared today, how can they get in touch with you?
Just send it to Dane, D-A-N-E, at greatdanegraphics.com.
It's pretty simple. Dane at greatdanegraphics.com.
You got it.
That's fantastic. Anything else, Dane, that we need to know that you can share with us?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Well, we appreciate
Thanks for
your
having
time.
me. Though. I really appreciate it.
No. We thank
man.
you. And I want to make sure that all of you that tuned in today that listened live, thank you for being here. Don't forget, next Thursday, same time, Dane's going to take us in another direction with some more specifics, new training, more information, so that you can stay up to speed, learn some tricks, some tips. Make sure that you tune into next week's webinar. It's going to be Photoshop, our second session. You would go to our website to register, just like you did last time. And otherwise, this is Jay. He's Jeff. That's Dane, the great one, Great Dane Graphics. And thank you for paying attention and tuning in today to our webinar. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dane.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Dane.
Bye.